Hello everyone, I'm Megan Travis, and welcome back to another episode of Ben Talks About. And as you can no doubt see from the shirt that I am wearing and the figure that we have right in front of us, we are taking a look at another one of the NECA Godzilla figures, more specifically the 2003 version of Godzilla from the film Godzilla Tokyo SOS. But before we talk about the figure itself, I want to go ahead and discuss the box right here. This is an example of the type of boxes that I had mentioned during my reviews of the 1994 and 1954 NECA figures, where as opposed to those which came in those generic packagings, these later ones came in boxes that actually showed the posters that the actual films came from. And you see there's an opening flap that shows a picture of the figure, as well as an opening of where the figure would eventually be, as well as a background inside of there. You can kind of see like the cardboard bit kind of bending down like that, but it's meant to represent a setting that's actually in the movie. And if you turn to the side, you see another version of the Tokyo SOS poster, and on the back of it you see the figure in more or less the only pose that you'll ever see it actually be in, as well as a bit of a description as to what the actual movie is about. But yeah, this box actually does look really nice, and this is an example of a type of box that I would want to actually keep because it's actually really good quality as opposed to the other ones. So with the box out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the figure itself, which in my opinion is one of my absolute favorite designs for any Godzilla figure ever. I basically grew up watching the Millennium series of Godzilla films because since I was born in the year 2000. And so this variation of Godzilla, and pretty much all the Millennium variations of Godzilla have a sort of nostalgic connection to me. And this is a prime example of what I really enjoy about these versions of Godzilla. And it basically has the traits of the version of that was from Godzilla 2000 and Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, with a more traditional Heisei Godzilla style color scheme, with the spines themselves having the same sort of jaggedy design that the 2000 version had, but having the traditional whitish gray coloring as opposed to the purple. But I still really do enjoy the overall design of it, and I think they managed to actually capture the actual sculpt of it really well. The actual engineering of the figure is a bit questionable, and I'll get to that in a little bit, but other than that, seeing it as like a display piece is really cool. And one of the big examples is the fact that the tail is by far, as you can no doubt see, one of the longest tails out of any of the NECA figures, but it's also one of the most posable, as you can see right here. A large majority of the points on it are on a sort of bowl joint, and it has the same sort of bendy wire that it has at the very end of the tail. So yeah, you're able to get it in the tail into some pretty cool looking poses, and it'll do a good job actually staying there, which is always nice. The overall, and as you can see, the another thing that they actually captured really well was the scar that you could see on Godzilla's chest, which he had throughout the whole film. Which you know, it does look really nice. The colors are sort of subtle, but you can still notice the fact that it's a separate color from, you know, the rest of the body, which is always nice. So yeah, overall the design of the look of the figure is really nice. The posability is more or less the same as all the other NECA figures. It has joints for its legs as well as its knees, but like a lot of the figures, the knee joints are really stiff, so I wouldn't really recommend trying to bend those at risk of actually accidentally breaking the figure. The feet are on the same sort of joints, so they're able to move around rather nicely. As I said, the tail, I believe there are three or four separate points of the tail that are connected through like a sort of ball joint, so it's able to do like a lot of really good poses. The arms do move around rather well, but the main sort of problem that I have in terms of the engineering of the figure is with its neck piece. Kind of similar to the 1994 Godzilla figure, its neck is connected to a completely like separate piece, but they have the entire piece also molded as like his shoulders. So, and that actually really restricts the how well the arms can actually move, as you can see right there. So yeah, that sort of restricts the kind of movement that you can have with his neck. To be fair, this version of Godzilla isn't the most flexible Godzilla suit out there, so it kind of makes sense for them to have this sort of neck joint, but it just seems like a bit of an odd choice considering all the other Godzilla figures have managed to do that rather well. But it doesn't really hinder it doesn't really hinder this sort of posing a whole bunch. It just seems like a bit of an odd choice, and the head is of course on a separate sort of ball joint, which lets it like move around a bunch, and the mouth can also open. Unfortunately, this figure didn't come with a beam effect piece, but I kind of can understand why, considering how small his head is compared to how big it would have to be to actually hold a beam effect piece. But yeah, other than that, the posability on this guy is really good, and like I said, with the tail actually being as movable as it is, you can actually get him into some pretty cool looking dynamic poses. Some of the poses can also look better than some of the poses you can get for the with the other NECA Godzilla figures. Speaking of which, as for comparisons with this guy, right here I have the my first of the NECA figures that I got, the 1994 version of him from Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. As you can see, like always when comparing the Heisei Godzillas, this sizing is very inaccurate considering how huge the Heisei version of Godzilla was. So, but yeah, there's him, and then also for comparison we have the original 1954 Godzilla, which I still have his beam effect part placed in his mouth. This is actually kind of fitting considering the plot of the movie that this version of Godzilla is in. And if you've seen the film, you'll understand why. But I'm not quite sure how this I suppose would be a bit more accurate to how it would be. Although it seems like they should be on more of an equal footing. As you can see, the 54 Godzilla is a lot shorter compared to the 2003 Godzilla. And also, for a rather odd comparison, one that's actually not a NECA figure, but is still a Millennium Godzilla figure nonetheless, is the Bandai Creation Godzilla 2000 figure, which, now that I look at it, I sort of realize how short this version of him is. However, that's probably due to the fact that his legs are stuck in that sort of bent position. I'm pretty sure if he was a more of an up-straight figure, he would look around this compared to him. But yeah, seeing these two figures side by side with each other really goes to show the sort of details that that modern figures can have especially compared to the older figures. However, this is a Bandai Creation figure, and the Bandai Japan figures are always going to be way better than the ones that we get in the U.S. But still, nonetheless, it really does go to show how far people have come in terms of the way they make figures nowadays. So overall, I am really glad that that I got this figure, and Daniel, if you're watching this, I just want to say, I know I've said thank you for this a bunch of times, but thank you for getting this for me as my birthday present. You honestly didn't have to do that, but I am really very grateful that you actually got it for me, and I'm really glad to have this figure in my collection. So with all that in mind, I hope you all enjoyed me talking about this figure. If you want to go ahead and try and get this figure for yourself, you're probably going to have to look rather hard for it, because as most of you have probably already known who have been searching around for these figures, NECA actually recently lost the license to produce these Godzilla figures. So this is actually one of the last ones they actually made. So finding these in the stores is probably going to be rather difficult, especially with the whole pandemic not making finding figures any easier. So you're probably just going to have to rely on getting them online, which isn't really not really a bad choice. But especially for some of the other NECA figures, you're probably going to have to spend quite a lot in order to get them. So, but with all that in mind, again, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and until I see you all next time when I talk about other stuff that I really enjoy, I am Ben Contreras, and bye.